Most people think debt keeps them poor, so they avoid it completely. But here's what nobody tells you. Debt doesn't make you poor or rich. The direction it flows determines everything. Because when you borrow money for things that lose value, every payment pulls you backwards. When you borrow for things that generate income, every payment pushes you forward. Same mechanism, opposite outcome. So in this video, we're breaking down exactly what separates destructive borrowing from wealth-building borrowing, why most people get this backwards without realizing it, and the simple filter that tells you whether debt will help or hurt you before you sign anything. Welcome. I'm Rickard. The first thing to understand is that debt has a direction, and that direction is determined by one question. What happens after you spend the borrowed money? Because borrowing itself isn't the problem. The problem is what you're financing. Most people borrow to buy things that decrease in value every single month while they're still making payments on them. A car, furniture, electronics, vacations, weddings. Every payment goes towards something that's worth less today than it was yesterday. That's consumption debt. And consumption debt compounds in the wrong direction. Here's the math that most people never see. When you finance a depreciating purchase, you're not just paying for the item. You're paying interest on something that's losing value. So the gap between what you owe and what it's worth gets wider, not narrower. A $30,000 car financed over 5 years costs you nearly $600 a month. After 5 years, you've paid over $35,000. The car is now worth maybe $12,000. You're down $23,000. And that's before we even talk about what that money could have done if it went somewhere else. Now contrast that with production debt. Production debt finances something that generates more money than it costs. Equipment that increases your output. A rental property where rent covers the mortgage plus profit. On inventory that sells at a margin. The loan payment is identical, $600 a month. But instead of paying for something that's disappearing, you're paying for something that's producing. The thing you bought covers its own payment and puts money in your account on top of that. Here's the uncomfortable part. If you're currently making payments on things that don't generate income, you're using one of the most powerful wealth-building tools in reverse. You're compounding backwards. The people who build wealth aren't avoiding debt. They're reversing its direction. And the difference isn't complicated. It's just one filter applied consistently. If this kind of clarity on finance mechanics is useful, subscribe. There's more coming. And if you found value in this breakdown, a like helps other people find it too. Either way, let's keep going. Here's where it gets strange. You've probably been told your whole life that debt is something to avoid. Stay out of it. Pay it off fast. Don't carry balances. And that advice sounds reasonable until you notice that every wealthy person you've ever heard of uses enormous amounts of debt. Real estate investors borrow millions. Business owners finance expansion. Corporations leverage billions. They're not avoiding debt. They're using more of it than anyone else. So either the rule is wrong or something else is happening. And what's happening is direction. They're not borrowing to buy things that shrink in value. They're borrowing to control things that grow. So all debt splits into two categories, and which one you're in determines everything. The first is consumption debt. That's when you borrow to buy something that loses value and produces nothing. Cars, furniture, gadgets, trips. The thing depreciates while you're still paying for it. The second is production debt. That's when you borrow to buy something that generates more money than it costs you. The asset pays for itself and then keeps going. Every dollar you've ever borrowed falls into one of these two buckets. And most people have it backwards without knowing it. Here's how the trap works. You borrow $30,000 for a car. Payments are $600 a month for 5 years. But while you're paying, the car is losing value. Fast. After those 5 years, you've paid $35,000 total. The car is now worth maybe 12. You're down over 20 grand. And here's the part that really hurts. When that loan ends, most people immediately finance another car. Same pattern, new loan. The thing they're paying for keeps shrinking, but the payments never stop. I call it that's consumption debt. It doesn't just cost you once, it compounds backwards. And here's why people keep doing it. The phrase, "I can afford the payment," sounds responsible. $500 a month feels manageable when you're budgeting. But that same $500 over 5 years is $30,000. Over 10 years, $60,000. Over 20 years, 120,000. Monthly thinking hides the real number, and it hides something worse. That money could have been working for you instead. Every dollar going to a depreciating asset is a dollar that can't grow. Monthly payments feel small. Lifetime destruction is massive. That gap is where most people lose. Production debt runs in the opposite direction. You borrow the same amount, same monthly payment, but this time, you're buying something that generates income, a piece of equipment that increases what you can produce, a rental property where the rent covers the mortgage plus extra. The thing you bought pays for itself every month and puts money back in your pocket. When the loan ends, it doesn't stop. The asset keeps producing, and that profit can go toward the next one. Same debt mechanism, different direction. Instead of compounding backwards, hey, it compounds forward. Let's put the numbers side by side. Same $30,000 loan, same $600 a month. First scenario, you finance a vehicle. After 5 years, you've paid $35,000. The car is worth $12,000. You're down $23,000 and you've got nothing producing income. Second scenario, that same $30,000 goes toward equipment or a rental property down payment. After 5 years, you've paid $35,000, but the asset has been generating $1,200 a month the whole time. That's $72,000 collected, minus the $35,000 you paid. You're up $37,000, and the thing is still producing. Same loan, opposite outcome. So how do you know which is which before you sign anything? 3 questions. First, does this purchase generate more cash flow than its monthly payment? Second, if you lost your income tomorrow, would this thing still cover its own costs? Third, in 5 years, will it be worth more or less than what you paid? If the answers are no, no, and less, you're looking at consumption debt. Don't finance it. If the answers are yes, yes, and more, you're looking at production debt. Now check if the math actually works. That's the filter. Right now, you're probably in one of 3 places. If you're currently making payments on things that are losing value, the first move is simple. Stop adding new consumption debt, pay off what's there, then don't replace it. If you're debt-free but still broke, you've stopped the bleeding. That's half the battle. Now take whatever you would have been paying and redirect it towards something that produces. If you're already using production debt, tighten the math. Make sure every borrowed dollar is generating the most it possibly can. Where you are determines what you do next. Wealth isn't built by avoiding debt. It's built by reversing its direction. Stop financing things that lose value. Start financing things that produce. Let those assets cover their own costs and generate surplus. Take that surplus and repeat the pattern with larger amounts. This isn't one decision you make once. It's a system you apply consistently. Same mechanism everyone has access to. Different direction, and the direction is what compounds. So look at your current debt right now. For each one, answer honestly. Is this making you richer or poorer every month? Comment which category you're in and what you're changing next.